It took 2 years of art school before I was even allowed to do what I thought I was coming for, which was to design brands. The first 2 years, I mainly did exercises that felt pretty pointless at the time, and I couldn't really see what the point was. But it turns out they ended up being kind of the foundation for everything I know about design. So today, I'm going to give you 5 exercises that will help you develop those same fundamental skills without the art school price tag. If we're just meeting, I'm Janelle. I've been a graphic designer for about 15 years, and I have made every possible mistake on my path to becoming a creative professional. I want to help other people get there a little bit faster and with a little bit less heartburn. So if that sounds good to you, hit the subscribe button because I would really love to hang out again. Okay, so when you start Design 101, before you ever touch a real project or a client brief, you will spend months doing abstract design exercises. They can feel kind of woo-woo and weird and like, what is the point? Because I'm not actually making anything that I'm going to end up using for something, right? The thing is, in the creative internet, we talk a lot about making passion projects and how to build out your portfolio. Myself included, I love to talk about those things. But we don't talk a lot about how you actually build the fundamental skills that help you be able to tackle any design problem. And that's where these exercises come in. If you've ever done a life drawing session where you draw from a model, you never start by sitting down to do a 3-hour portrait. You start by doing 5-minute gesture sketches. These are these loose, quick little drawings that get your wrist moving. It warms your hand up, literally, and helps you get into the flow of being able to draw. And these exercises are kind of the same thing in a design space. Sometimes when I'm about to start a big project, I'll just pull up one of these exercises and spend like a half an hour doodling around just to kind of get my creative juices flowing. It's literally the same thing as warming up at the gym. So if you ever feel like you're missing some fundamentals or you're just a little bit rusty and you see people being able to turn out these really creative things all of the time, you don't quite know how they got there, doing these kinds of exercises is just helpful skill maintenance. No matter how far along you are in the process, it's just useful to get your brain into the creative space. So here's a few that I have found really helpful. All right, the first one is about the power of typography. Take a movie that you really love and make a poster for that movie with no visuals whatsoever, only using type to convey what the movie is. This kind of forces you to think about how letter forms can convey emotion or get across a theme or a message or a plot even in some sort of way. It forces you to kind of narrow in and start seeing letter forms as visual language and how you can actually convey emotion through just those words. It can be really freeing and you can come up with some very fun results. On a practical level, this also helps you get used to working in Illustrator. You can work with the typeface and the paragraph tools and character panels, but also outline that word and start using the pen tool to create weird things or add text effects. You can get really creative with how far you can push a word with scale and balance and spacing to convey an emotion within the space. It helps you kind of play around with what the options are within Illustrator. It's a fun place to start. The next one is about pushing out how many different variations of something you can come up with. So pick a concept like a tree or a house or a mountain, and then make 10 different logo variations, but only using geometric shapes like circles or squares or triangles. This is really helpful because it forces you to think about a concept and then really break it down to its most base elements. How can you represent it as simply as possible? How can you add more things to make it more decorated? How can you make one thing, like a basic house, feel really elaborate or really simple, or evoke different emotions? The more you start playing around with different combinations and arrangements, you can see how many options there actually are to express the same basic idea, which is really cool. On a practical level, I love this because it helps you start playing around with the shape builder tool within Illustrator. When you start layering over basic shapes, you can use the shape builder to cut away or add on different pieces and start seeing how complex compound shapes can come together. Sometimes you see someone's final result and it looks like really complicated and beautiful. You realize actually most things are just a combination of circles and squares. And if you think that way, you can kind of build anything. All right, the next one is all about hierarchy. Design a poster or a flyer or something with a lot of text in it, but you can only use one typeface and one weight. You have to convey a lot of information, but you can't use different typefaces as a crutch. So you really have to start seeing other ways to show hierarchy and to get the eye to travel from one piece of information to another. Then take the same design, but add in different weights. So now you have one more tool in your belt to see how you can get the eye to move through the page. and express different hierarchies. I love this because it helps you really see what typography can do. It helps you appreciate what letter forms are and what different typefaces offer and the different tools you have to help tell a story and guide through information. At the end of the day, graphic design is about taking information, expressing it visually to convey an idea. And this exercise really helps you see how much typography plays into that. It helps you appreciate typefaces as tools and the different ways that you can help someone see what you want them to see. The next one is about how color can affect mood. Design a simple layout, like a poster or a business card, and then make 5 different variations to change the mood and the feeling of that design, but only changing the color palette. When you start playing around with color options, it helps you see that color alone can completely change the feeling of a design. You can take the same little business card and it can feel bright and expressive and poppy, or neutral and relaxed and refined. It can feel organic and mellow, or really mod and clean, all based on color. And when you narrow in on color as the only variable, it really helps you appreciate how much you can do with color palettes. The last one helps develop a skill that I think is hugely important and a little harder to grasp, which is visual balance. Your challenge is to create a design where at least 80% of the layout is white space, but it still feels balanced and impactful and cohesive. It's really easy for a minimal design to feel really unfinished or kind of blah. And so it's a natural impulse to just keep adding things to it. But the more that you start coming back, stripping things back, and thinking about how you can have the most impact with the least amount of stuff, and use the negative space to your advantage, the more powerful your design eye becomes. This really forces you to use elements strategically and use that negative space to guide the eye where you want it to go. You can even start appreciating how really generous spacing feels really premium and elegant versus something that feels really cluttered. The challenge is to make it feel intentional and not just empty and unfinished. When you start practicing this, you can start using negative space as a tool in your belt and not just something that has to be overcome. The goal with these exercises is not to end up with portfolio pieces or things that you can use for clients, but really to start building those muscle memories so that you can use them in projects in the future. I've got a ton of other videos giving you ideas for passion projects that you can use for your portfolio if you want to go check those out. If you want to keep diving through exercises, watch this video next, because I recommend some of my favorite books that have some really useful exercises in them to help get you started.